And we are recording.
And it is 6 o'clock. All the elements have converged. All right, well, let's get started. This is the Suamico Village Board meeting for Monday, May 19th, 2025. The time is 6 p.m. At this time, I would like to call this meeting to order, and just a reminder for anyone who comes forward, please provide your name and address first, and then speak into the microphone so that we can get a good recording of what you're sharing for the public. So at this time, looking at the agenda, I do have a request to take item, I would like to offer a motion to take item 8B and move it ahead of item 8A. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We had a second from trustee Neto to move item 8B before 8A. All other items as stated. Do I have a motion to approve the evening's agenda
Motion to approve?
with the change?
I believe you made that a motion. And,
Well, I made the motion to move an item 8B.
okay,
Maybe I don't need two motions, but just to be sure.
that's fine.
So was there a motion to approve the agenda with the change, moving 8B ahead of 8A?
Second.
And I second. No, you
Okay.
made the motion, and I second.
So I have it from Mr. Andrews as a first, and I have it from trustee Romas as a second.
Let's go that.
All those in favor of approving the agenda with the change, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Very good. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Excellent.
I stole this one.
Okay. Item number 5 this evening is a presentation from Director Smits welcoming a new Public Works employee, Anthony Schimick. Director Smits.
All right, thank you. Please welcome Tony Schimick to the village and our Public Works team. I'm excited to have him on board and the positive work ethic he brings. Tony has some construction experience and some Public Works material experience from his prior position. With that being said, please welcome Tony. I know he's got some big shoes to fill after Dennis Vandenheuvel retired after 38 years, but
Boy.
I think he's the man for the job.
All right, well, congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
We'll look forward to celebrating your anniversary for the next 37 years. All right, excellent. Item number 6 this evening is public appearances. This is the point in our agenda where anyone in the audience who is here for an item not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to come forward and share with us what is on your mind. Please, as I said, provide your name and address into the microphone and then let us know what's on your mind. Anyone here for an item not on the agenda? No one. Okay. Item number 7 this evening is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of previous minutes of the village board dated May 5th, 2025. Item B, municipal court report, April 2025. Item C, animal control report, March 2025. Item D, a temporary liquor license for the new zoo Sip in Safari. And item E, temporary liquor licenses, new zoo Feast with the Beast. Are there questions or discussion on the consent agenda this evening?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. I do have a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated from trustee Eckert. Is there a second?
Second.
And I have a second from trustee McKeefery. Any other further discussion or questions with regard to the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, as aforementioned, we are moving item B, 8B, ahead of item 8A. Item 8B is a request by Wilderness Land Holdings LLC for approval of a 3-lot certified survey map as prepared by Verbiker Incorporated on parcel SU 110, zoned rural residential located on Oakdale Drive and Wilderness Trail near the intersection of both roads. Zoning Administrator Dunks.
Thank you. We are looking at about a 13 and a quarter acre parcel here. Rural residential, it is vacant, surrounded by ag farmland preservation and some rural residential with ag uses and single-family homes. The property is located in an area that's shown to remain in rural, not to be served by any public sewer or water. Lots will be served by an existing road, so no provisions are needed for any stormwater or additional road improvements. Both lots do appear to meet all code requirements. Your motion by Planning Commission was to recommend approval, with just the condition of meeting all other applicable ordinances, regulations, and reviewing agencies. Thank you.
All right. Are there questions or discussion? Questions for zoning administrator Dunks on this item? None? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? The floor is yours.
Robert Chambers, 3499 Wilderness Trail. I am the managing member of Wilderness Land Holdings LLC. I'm just here tonight to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions? No? It's your lucky night, there aren't any questions. All right, if there are no questions or no discussion, I would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the three-lot certified survey map as prepared by Berbeke on partial SU-110 with the following conditions: meet the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, regulations, and reviewing agencies.
Second.
Thank you. Trustee Andrews has offered a motion of approval to recommend the approval of the three-lot certified survey map by Verbiger on parcel SU 110 with the condition as stated, and that has been seconded by trustee Romas. Are there any other questions or discussion on this item? Very well. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, back to item 8B, planning and zoning items. Planning and zoning presentation on residential sewer zoning code. This evening, we are greeted by Mr. Condon, who is a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission, who will be providing a presentation along with Commissioner Thompson. Thank you. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello. All right, so this is kind of a continuation of what we had presented before to you guys with a little more refined, and we thought we'd start out with some problem statements, just some ideas of why we're trying to look into all of these, what we're trying to do. So a couple things, there hasn't been that much adequate growth in the sewer district, mainly because of lot size and the village is unattractive, therefore there's more of a lack of development. And there is not many housing options that are affordable for both entry level as well as downsizing individuals, so that's kind of so why are we here today? We're here to show a final proposal to introduce changes to the zoning ordinance as it stands, and this is only for for residential sewer. So rural residential will be unaffected, it's just residential sewer with this, just to be clear on what we are changing, or what I'd like to change or present to you. So we got some visual presentations to better understand what these would look like or what this is all about. And then it's up to you guys to vote on what you guys want to do next. So this is just a kind of a compact slide of the last presentation we did, just the reason that we need to change residential sewer, so it'll increase development, offset cost per address, follow what the market is telling us. Many outside groups have confirmed this need, and this is the main one I would think is a comprehensive plan consideration. Since we have that coming up, pretty soon here, it'd be nice to have another tool in the toolbox to kind of tweak around with that, so. So this is kind of the chart we had presented last time. So the commission looked around, and these are the numbers that we've kind of settled on, looking at what's the neighboring villages are doing and what's the market is pushing for. And so just to kind of go over it one more time, we were proposing to split residential sewer into 3 different zones. We would call it R1, R2, R3. And then as the number goes up, so would the availability for density. So R1 with single-family homes with 70 feet of frontage, R2 65, and R3 with 60, and with 2 and 3 allowing for duplexes, and then 3 ultimately leading to being able to do a multifamily development or like a retirement kind of development, that kind of thing, you know. So this is kind of the numbers that the commission has determined would be suitable for what we need. So, go to the next one. Where this would apply on the comprehensive plan part, you know, someday when we start getting to that, there's definite room for development past Bayport over there on Lineville, north of Lineville. That's one area that has, you know, potential for this kind of growth, you know. Main thoroughfares like Velp Avenue, there's definitely places in there that a lot of these zonings could be attributed to. There is proposed sewer area to the north. If you look all the way up there, it says G up there. That might be more difficult, I've been told, in the future to get any kind of real stuff up there without real investment, so that one might not be as much. But mainly kind of looking at, you know, Velp and out towards past Bayport, because we don't have a lot of sewer serviceable area left. That's kind of the problem. So this would give us a tool to kind of better utilize that land. So we got some visuals, so we'll kind of start with R1 and go up. So this will show the different zoning classifications and demonstrate the ability to preserve Suamico's essence. And then I'm going to try to show with some really super fun math about how the impact to levy would change with the lot sizes. So we'll start out with the R1. These were taken in both Oneida and Hobart, so just different neighborhoods. So we've got a few different of these pictures to kind of show like what a development would look like. So we're not just throwing mud at a wall and hoping we don't know what it's going to look like. So you can see, you know, it's, you know, there's yards, green, you know, trees, you know, normal houses. These houses are not, you know, they're nice. You know, they look good. You got 3-car garage there. You know, it's, you know, curb, you know, it's similar to a lot of the developments we already have in Suamico. Similar here, this one, you know, this one does have sidewalk, you know, we do have sidewalks here too. So, you know, when you have these developments that has a little bit more of that, sidewalks are desirable, you know, and people prefer sidewalks. People like sidewalks, they like walking trails. So it's another thing that would be able to add to the city. Safety-wise, you know, in these kind of situations. So here's a kind of a drive video here. If you click it one more time, it should move. Oh, go back. It's go slow, yeah. Oh, there you go.
Where's this?
This one was in Hobart, I believe. Is this the one you took, Mark? No, this one was, this is Holiday. This was Hobart, and it's either Hobart or Oneida. I can get that.
I just wondered.
Yeah. Typical neighborhood, you know, it's. Nice vehicles, all right. So then R2, going into R2, this is down by this is a Hidden Winds Lane in Hobart. So this is all duplexes. So this is not what, you know, would be a typical, but I tried to find kind of worst case scenario for R2 is if it was just all duplexes, you know. So this is a 2-shot picture of down the street. So it kind of shows what that would look like. And, you know, the way they're doing duplexes with the individual driveways, they look more like separate houses, you know. So, and I think these were actually condoed out. If you look on the GIS, so the way it's set up, it's actually, they condoed them. So that allows for more of an affordable place to live, you know. And as a condo situation, it's less of a rental deal too. So it's a way to get, you know, that starter home. So on a personal note, that's how I got my foot in here in Suamico was we bought a 0 lot line condo on River Hill Court. And so we started there, lived there for a few years until we moved to where we are now. So it's a good springboard to be able to move into a, you know, I don't want to say better house, but we thought it was better for us. But this otherwise another good way to downsize, you know, if you have a zero lot line, you have half of the lot to have to take care of, you know, so you don't have all the yard work that is required. So it's just an overview down of the same road there, so try to get you like a top-down view of what that would look like, so. So these are the R3, so this would be 60 feet of frontage, so this is more, would be the higher density of what we would be able to get with this. So, and the other thing too, I want to remind you, it says 60 feet of frontage, but that's not what every single lot, this is not a maximum, it's a minimum. So most of the time, these don't end up all being 60, 60, 60, 60 right after each other. Especially with the wetlands, the way we have here, the way they have to build around stuff, it's gonna, you know, we might get 60 feet of frontage, but the lot is not gonna it's not gonna be bang, 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 bang in a straight grid fashion. It's just, Suamico won't allow it the way the land is here, so. The next one. Same thing here. These were taken, Mr. Stevens, this one was in,
This ledge view is on the, or, yeah, it's kind of ledge view on the left, and on the right, that's over by Howard Commons.
Howard Commons, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So, communities similar to ours. So they have, this was a picture to try to get, there's a water feature in the back, so these houses all kind of abut a lake in the back, you know, and so they take their, I'm assuming some sort of retention pond system and make it look nice and have a, you know, nicer for everybody living there. Then the use of duplexes down, I would say less desirable areas to live, like at the end of a road, you know, where lights are shining, or corners. It's kind of what we do here in Suamico a lot too, is the corner lots, the entry lots into neighborhoods, a lot of times end up being duplexes, so that's to show that kind of thing. So, and is this the neighborhood that has the community
It's the
center?
one on the left has got the clubhouse.
The clubhouse, yeah. So a lot of times these neighborhoods, when you do have them tight together like that, I wouldn't say tight together. I would say, you know, when you have more people invested in an area, you're allowed to, you can afford more perks. So a lot of things, like this one here has a clubhouse with a pool, right? Yep, and they have different, you know, things like that, which is an attractive thing for people, especially if you don't want to have to take care of a pool all the time, but you can live in a neighborhood that, you know, affords you the ability to have your own private pool, you know, in a sense. So it's nice things to be able to offer people that wouldn't get that in other places. So here's another kind of a driving video. If you click, that's a video on the left. Yeah.
And that'll be, this is right over behind Howard Commons, the one on the left, the video.
The video is Howard Commons, yeah. And on the left, it's a show of the layout of how they build a lot of these. You know, it's not grid, you know, house. You know, they have like that water feature in the back, and they try to make desirable land and kind of work with the land like that to be able to create a nice environment, because nobody wants to be stacked on each other. You know, don't want that doesn't sell either. So you don't want to. We're not going to want to create these environments where it's. But one of the main things too is the market is pointing towards this, because if you look here, if you try to find a for sale sign, oh, there's one right there. If you try to find a for sale sign, they're hard to find out there. These developments go fast. A lot of times you need to put an offer in on things before they're built, you know. And the developers are building these knowing people are coming. They're not waiting for people to come and say, hey, do you want a house? Let's build you a house. They're taking these, they're building them out and selling them, and they go. So it's a desirable thing, and that's what the market is pushing for, is this kind of stuff. So this is another video. So I did this one with a drone. So the one on the left is Suamico. This is the development that's next to Bayport. And then the one on the left is one in Hobart. So
Is that your neighborhood, Trustee Rose?
No.
I live in Suamico.
Suamico's the one side, yeah.
I was joking.
I tried to maintain the same speed, but it was pretty windy that day, so it was kind of tough to.
When you look at those two images, what are the lot sizes on the right versus the left?
Yes, the Hobart size, that is anywhere between, I think it was 60 and 75. And then on the Suamico side, you had some at 100, but most are like 70 in there. So I think that must have been by PPD, so it's. So my big takeaway from this was it doesn't look terribly different than developments that we currently have in Suamico at the 60 to 75, you know,
Right
because
now,
each,
Suamico one is your condo development out there. Now you're back into regular, which was a conservation by design subdivision.
And was that done through a PDD?
It was considered, I believe it was considered conservation by design
Okay.
rather than a PDD. But the condos would have been through PDD, yes.
Yeah.
so then the last part of R3 would be multifamily or senior living, you know, so, because currently we have not a lot of places for our seniors to be able to downsize in Suamico. There's plenty of other places, and a lot of times you end up leaving. So these are some photos of different developments that I think would do well here, you know, or we think would do well here in Suamico. You know, you have, it's kind of like the house look, you know, without being too much like the square apartment buildings of Green Bay. You know, you have those square brown buildings that they build everywhere, you know. It's not how these are built anymore, because people know that they don't like the looks of them. So if you make them like this, and it's higher quality material, you know, you've got brick facing with siding, you know, windows, just like a regular home would, you know. So that's the one way to preserve the look of it. And then building it like this isn't cheap either. So it's not like, it's going to be a nice place for people to live, you know, without breaking the bank for those that live there. So then this is that's the clubhouse, right? Yeah, for that one development that was it Ledgeview? I can't remember.
That one is in Lawrence.
Lawrence, yeah, okay,
Yep.
they're all mixing together. But that's the clubhouse. So a pool and stuff in there, they have different things that they're allowed to do, and that's for the residents of those communities, so they must have some sort of like HOA environment there. But, yep, and then this is a video, this is Howard Commons, I believe. So this would be a 3-story, I don't know if 3 stories would do well here in Suamico, but it's just an example of.
One way to get a ladder truck.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for 3rd story, yeah. So a lot of these developments too is one of those, it's the idea of a local living place with a central theme, you know, so Howard Commons, obviously the commons there, so it's a desirable place for people to go and be, you know, so it's a desirable place to live also. And people live there, and they love to live there.
While we're watching this, my understanding is some of these developments, we're seeing retail on the lower level. Is that because some of the financing, the TIF districts are going to allow some of that development to happen with the retail in it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what their strategy was and what requirements they needed, but that would make some sense because you can't have a strictly residential TIF district. You have to have some kind of a mix, and 35% is your max for residential, so they might have been required to put in some commercial into that development. But I don't know the details of their TIF agreement.
I mean, I get why there's multifamily and 3 stories, you know, gathered around Howard Commons, and nobody's going to want a single-family residential property on the edge of Howard Commons.
So then the math part. So this, so I'm trying to show what the impact of R1 would be. So we took the last kind of development that was done in residential sewer, which was the Chamber Hills plot over off of here, off of Belpier over here. So this was the last real estate assessment. So it was, I think it was January 1st of 2024. So we don't have the current numbers, but in the bottom corner, you see it says $18.5 million for the assets, and that was after being halfway developed. So we'll go to the next one there. So if you take a half development at 18.664 million, and then you figure fully developed conservatively, if it's not going to come out equal, you can say around, 36 million would be about the assets of what fully developed out, for this thought experiment. In R1, so currently there's 88 lots, but R1 would allow for 125 on the same road frontage. So a 30% increase in the lots, which would give an estimated development assessment at 51 million. So if you just had the same houses, basically. So a lot of times when these lots are smaller, the houses are the same square footage, the same assessments, because the land is not where the most of the assessment is, it's the buildings, so.
I don't know if you can factor these numbers if you consider, if you're putting people in here that densely, you're going to have the sidewalks, you're going to need the leaf pickup, you're going to need 24-hour
well,
fire protection.
yeah, but this
A
isn't-
ladder truck if you're going real high.
Right.
You're going to need more cops, you're going to need neighborhood parks, you're going to need more schools.
Sure.
They're probably going to want libraries.
Right, well, here, I'll show you.
I mean, how is this,
So I think you're confusing me here. This is not what this would cost us. This is what the assessed value of the buildings would be. So this has nothing to do with us. This would be them building it, and this is what the assessed value of that development would be. Not to put anything on any services or anything, but I'll show you. So if you want to go to the next one here. So fully developed at 36 million, the current mill rate would give us an estimated levy of around 641,000. So in R1 with the 25 extra lots with that 51 million valuation, would give us a 900,000 levy, which is around a $270,000 increase with no added infrastructure. So you're not adding any cost to snow removal or roads or nothing. That's if we took the current Chambers development and just had done this R1 instead of what they did there. So changing nothing, no roads, no sidewalks, no, nothing's different. This would be the increase in the levy that would be levied with no other increases in anything.
what would that matter if we're required to put in all those services with that big a demand?
Well, we wouldn't put the services in the
Well, the
developer
village
would.
would. Oh, you mean the developer originally?
Yeah, when they put
We
it in.
still have to add people to DPW to take care of all that, and I mean, this dense population, I don't know.
Sure, I mean, but this is what it would be, the increase, that would help offset a lot of those costs, and the offset would be,
But it would also
entrance.
create a lot more cost, too.
well, not as much as what you're getting, because you're not adding any infrastructure. When you go to, so what's your number one line item? It's your roads, right? So if you have to resurface your roads, this is the same road that you're gonna resurface tomorrow over here. This is no different. So yeah, you're gonna add some on some level, but not the big items, it's not gonna change it,
Isn't it actually more cost-effective? So
much more.
If you've got a section and you have 80 or 70 linear feet per lot, and I think you had something in here where you're getting 125 lots
125 on the
rather
same
than
road.
80, but it's in the same piece of property, it's the same piece of road, it's the same piece of sidewalk. So whether you have 80 lots or 125 lots, you're still having to plow the same road, you still have the same sidewalk for maintenance, you still have the same road that has to be topped. The difference is you have 125 homes that are paying for it versus 80 homes that are paying for it.
Yeah.
Does that?
You're not paying
Yeah,
for.
it makes sense to me, but it doesn't make sense because you're going to be adding a lot more things. And I mean, I don't like what Howard's doing. I don't think what they're doing is such a good thing. And many of us live in Suamico because it's Suamico, and we're not ashamed of that.
No, and
We don't think it looks ugly. I don't want a line of duplexes going up and down the road. That doesn't look better. And R2 and R3, you brought us some pretty good case scenarios. How bad could that get? Like an R3, a multifamily? Where can that go? I mean, we would have no say. Right now, some of those good, more densely developed neighborhoods, you can get in with a PDD. But you relax the code like this and anything will go. The developers are just going to make more money, which is their job, but that's not my job to make money for them.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do is kind of cut the red tape a little bit and trying to, deregulate some. Because right now through PDD, it's a few select people deciding what can be done here.
But that's so you don't get a bunch of crap in.
Sure.
Well, and if you look at what we're proposing for the multifamily, or in the code in general. And we're requiring an attached garage for a one-bedroom home, or for one-bedroom dwelling unit has to have a one-stall garage. 2 bedrooms has to have a 2-stall garage. That's mainly in there, so we're putting higher-end multifamily in, not just slapping a 12-unit building with a 12-stall detached, open, covered garage for that use. We're trying to keep the quality of construction up there. But this isn't just about trying to pack the village full of people. We have a water utility, as you know, that is in need of additional users. Our sewer and water utility, that's all we ever hear is we need more users to keep the cost down or to assist in that cost. And I agree, we're not here to make sure the developers are making enough money. But if the developer cannot make money, they're not coming here at all. And that's what we're seeing. They're not coming here because they can't make money on 100-foot wide lots. That's what this is about. And this is only the first step. We still don't have any way to serve, as you know, being on Public Works and Utility, the west side of Elp Avenue with sewer.
I'm
And if we,
somewhat open to the R1, but the 2s and the 3s, they scare the heck out of me. I mean, why are we trying to be like Howard?
we're not trying to be like Howard,
And-
our PDDs they're always coming forward after people are living there. And then it's always the not in my backyard. It doesn't mean we're gonna allow these everywhere. I think the R3 right now, the most probable location would be behind Chambers Hill Tavern. And across the street from that. You're not going to get single-family homes in there. Nobody wants to, most people don't want to raise their family with a tavern in the backyard. It's just who we are today. So that's the area that's prime for the multifamily. And that will get you the quickest way to more users and maybe be able to afford to get pipe in the ground to serve other areas and do more single-family R1 developments or the R2. And this isn't, nobody within Suamico has to drive down these, this is all gonna be basically new streets. If you don't like the way it looks, you don't drive down there. And there's nothing that's saying, we are as planning commission are not proposing that all subdivisions have to have sidewalks. That's still a village board decision, how they want to address that. If, it doesn't matter if there's a 100-foot lot or 80-foot lots, if the board decides we're gonna put sidewalks in a subdivision, they're gonna go in.
I've been a water customer for quite a while, and back when we hooked up. We didn't complain, and then we didn't have to, like a lot of people. We were promised that there would be a lot more of those, a lot more. And then people changed the rules and decided you didn't have to hook up anymore. Who foots the bill? The water customer. Now, that water tower, what is that, 500,000 gallons? It's not up to capacity, and we're talking about a 300,000. I've said all along, I think that's too big. We're promised a lot of things. Let's say you have a row of lots, and this one's supposed to be water and sewer here. Water and sewer's only out to here. What if these guys decide to develop and, doesn't happen? We don't get water and sewer, because that's kind of the history of this village. You invest in huge infrastructure, you promise the water utility customer, and then they're left on the lurch and they have to pay the bill.
And that was all board decisions, that was not anything other than that.
I get that, but I don't, a lot of these in here, a lot of these have already been deemed not gonna happen, never gonna happen. I don't know. I don't think it's,
Well, again, a lot of it, if you want to talk history, a lot of it to the north on Lakeview Drive would already be serviced by sewer and water if the board and the sanitary district had got along and just put that pipe in the ground. We lost 3-4 subdivisions to wetland mitigation banks now because we refused to put the pipe in the ground, whether that was a sanitary district issue or a town board at the time. How far do you want to go? I mean, there's a lot of faults that happen, but there's only one way to correct it, and that's to change how we're doing things. And the way we're doing things, we're down to two properties today that are in the original land divider's hands in sewer and water. And I might have a half a dozen of lots that don't have permits pulled already for new homes. Then we're done. We have nothing more in the sewer and water district, period, to build a new home. And nobody's knocking down our doors to come forward with a development. So what is the main difference between Howard and Suamico? I can tell you, one is lot sizes, number two is impact fees. We're not talking about impact fees right now. We're talking about getting the lots to a place where maybe they can absorb that $8,500 impact fee, where other communities have, like Howard has zero. That's a factor too, but we have to pay for that infrastructure somewhere, so I'm not gonna get into this whole impact fee issue. But all of that put together, we have no sewer water development, and nobody's even knocking on our door asking what we can or can't do, because they've been here, they've done that. They know what it's gonna be, and it's not worth it when you've got other communities doing what they're doing to help with developments. So
Can I offer a suggestion? I know we have a presentation, and I feel like we're losing track of the whole path of the presentation, so, and questions are important, but before we get into a long discussion, I would like to just complete the rest of the presentation so I can have a full picture of it, if that's acceptable, or if there are no additional questions at the moment.
Totally.
Go.
Andy, if I may just add a little more context to the current net mill rate. That net mill rate is for the entirety of the taxing entities within Suamico. So that includes the school district, the county, and the tech college. So the 269,000 increase, that would be split amongst the four taxing entities. It wouldn't all go to Suamico. We would see about 21% of that increase.
Right.
That's our share.
So this would help offset school costs and things like that, you know, so that's, yep, you're right, that's good. So then R3 would be so I did R1 and then R3 here, and so with the same sort of math, you could get 146 lots in there, giving you almost a $6 million valuation. So the increase to the levy would be, you know, $423,000. So, which would be, if, like I said, if there was not another inch of road paved in that whole development, or if any. So you could probably do better than this. If by developing with a slightly smaller lot size, you could have got another road in there maybe, you know, so, but this would be what could have been, you know, in that neighborhood with nothing else changing with the city, you know, so, let's go. Okay, conclusion. So what we ask is, for a vote to start the ordinance process is what the commission is looking for. Because our current financial situation demands change, you know, the water and sewer. Even this change, though, it will take years to be effective. So doing it today is not turning a key and fixing a lot of problems. So the longer we wait, the harder it would be to make any kind of changes. And just to be clear, this change only applies to rural sewer. So that's a big one.
residential.
Sorry, residential sewer. Residential sewer. Rural residential would not change. So, you know, if anyone that lives up in the north area there, it's not like all of a sudden they're just gonna start putting in multifamily home at the north side of Suamico. Nothing will change there. And then nothing will change to current development. So if you like having coffee in your backyard and it's quiet, it's gonna stay that way. Nothing will change. So, like Steve said, if you don't like how it looks, don't drive down there, you know? So it's more of a way to try to fix the same problem, about getting more people on the sewer so we can help mitigate the costs, you know, so let's not.
Sewer and water,
Sure, yeah, all of it, yep.
not sewer only.
No, of course not. No, yeah, we want to fix it. Just like you said, no one, you have promised all these things where people were going to come, and then nobody came. Well, there's a big roadblock right now. This development that I used over here, Chambers, was approved in 2018, you know, 7 years ago, and there's 2 lots left in there. And all of Hobart was built out in about 5 years. You know, so, I mean, that's telling us that the market does not want what we're selling. We have a product, but the market does not want to buy it. So but the big thing too at the end here, I just want to say, this was a lot of work by the whole commission. I want to thank all of my commissioners, here and not here. You guys did a great job. Our discussions were very good. We put a lot of time and a lot of effort into this. This isn't just a thought, you know, and then we just regurgitated this out. This took a lot of work by a lot of people to try to kind of put this all together. And I want to thank staff. You know, Steve, you did a lot of it, you know, with the, I'm sure you're going to get into the next part with all the different code stuff or ordinance stuff. So I want to say thanks to everybody. You guys did a really good job. I think we have a good thing here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions? Back where I thought we had more of the presentation left. We didn't. So anyone who has questions, comments, throw them out there.
I'm open to R1. 2 and 3 stink.
So tell us why.
Single-family homes. I mean, I don't want to see a ton of apartments. I think what they're doing in Hobart and Howard is ridiculous.
Well,
We
there
do have
is
some people
a lot
from-
of, there's a lot of people as a empty nesters and then nearing retirement and even retirement and after. There's quite a few of those people that have moved out of Suamico because they wanted to downsize, and we don't have that to offer them. Very, very little of it to offer them.
Well, you could get
And,
that in
and those,
R1.
and those R2s and R3s definitely is where they're going. It is, I know that. And this has been going on for quite a while. I mean, I would say 5, 6 years ago, even out on Huron Road, there's a huge development out there with this kind of stuff. Single family, but condensed. And I know an individual that lived out there for a while too, and it was very nice. So, you know, you can't hide the facts. You know, with the Chambers subdivision, you know, you're taking the same road and you're generating more revenue. I mean, how do you say no to that?
That would be in R1, though.
Yeah,
I'm fine with R1.
so I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, I just want to add something here because we had a lot of discussion and really, you know, the crux of it is we're doing planning for the growth of the village, okay? Right now, we recognize we don't have growth in the village as it relates to it and the cost with the whole sewer area, and it's like, why aren't we? You know, you look at neighboring communities, they're growing. And that adds to the tax base, adds to the revenue, and you know, as a community, that all brings good things. You know, we're trying to alleviate, you know, the cost with the sewer and the water right now by looking at this. We also have to remember too, is kind of looking at the group here and surveying, there's several generations in this community, and we're probably on the generation that when the village of Suamico started 20-some years ago, you know, it was much bigger lots, the economy was different, but now you have a generation that looks at things much differently. They look at more of community, they look at smaller homes. I mean, they're kind of on the go. And so we can't continue to look at the same things we've always done. And the evidence of that is we don't have growth right now. So we have to look at something different. We're really forced to. And the determination of that is really, you know, what do we think? What is the market telling us? We've had conversations with developers, we've had conversations with experts, and you know what? It's across the board of what people want and what they enjoy in a community. And so we shouldn't probably just say, we want this, but what allows the village to grow? Let's have the market. From a planning and zoning commission, you know, the reason why we're coming forward with this is because we need more tools. We don't have tools. And you know what makes sense, we give approval, we give adjustments, we do those types of things. But right now, we don't have those tools. You know, this might even allow development in areas that we couldn't even develop before. And it could be something where, like you, Michelle, it's a nice residential home, a single-family home in an area that we couldn't with the current zoning. The new zoning will give us allowance to do that, and then we pick up essentially more revenue associated. So there's multiple reasons associated with it, and I think, we spent over 3 months having these discussions, and you guys, we're trying to condense it, make it really easy, to kind of view, but there's a lot of insight. In fact, I think there's some people in the room that we had talked to, and they're very passionate, and they see it, not only in just our little area of the country, but they see it nationwide, what's going on in both, city, villages, towns, country. And, they were talking to that about being open and working with people in order to get that development, because everybody wins. Everybody wins in those types of situations. And as a planning commission, that's kind of the first level of saying, does this make sense? And by that, what I mean is as these developments come forward and do that. And then the next level is you guys, and saying, okay, yep, this makes sense to us, or maybe we send it back and we do something different. But we're just asking really to have that base level tool so that we can make much different decisions in order to help the community grow.
So a question on the way this is all then handled. So we'd have RS1, 2, and 3, and that would show up then on the master plan in areas where you'd have allowance for where an RS1 could be, RS2 or RS3, or is it you can do an RS1, 2, 3 anywhere in the residential sewer district? How does that work?
I think the thought was we would integrate this into the comprehensive plan
Okay.
and put areas where we think these are.
So we'd have zones that say, this is good for RS3,
what
this
we're
is good
looking
for
at, yeah.
RS2.
And then,
Okay.
we would, be able to cookie cutter what we wanted,
Okay.
we think. It's a tool.
Yep, we're looking for the screws and the nuts to put something together.
Part of it is, what are the existing properties that are available? So once we would come to an agreement on whatever these, sizes are, then, we are there's going to be, the next step is a pretty significant conversation with Public Works about where they see growth and where they see, the expansion into. Is it behind Chambers with multifamily? Are there other places? And then it's also looking at the existing build-out that we have and making sure that we're trying to be consistent with those, right? So, a multifamily, any kind of approval of a multifamily, build or whatever, you're not going to do that out in the middle of a residential sewer area.
Sure. And so currently, our residential sewer, what are the limitations on that?
100
Frontage?
feet of road frontage, 14,000 square feet. And I would expect that the next, acreage to the south of the existing Chambers Hill would remain RS1, and then you'd probably go to an RS2, and then when you get all the way down behind the bar there, go to the RS3, because you're not gonna want to put RS3 immediately adjacent to RS1 in most, you're gonna want the buffers. That would be the proper planning. But we need to do it before the homes are there, so everybody knows what's gonna be happening away from them and not, be pounded on the doors when we're trying to do a
Yeah.
PDD to allow something that they're gonna see from their front door.
I like the idea of having multiple versions, right? Because then you have that ability, everyone can look at the comprehensive plan and say, well, you know what, maybe I want to live in an area that's less population dense. I'm going to stay away from these areas, right? Or maybe I like the community feel of having a large number of people near me. This is kind of maybe where I want to live. The question I have is, we have the RS1 now. What stopped you from keeping RS1 at 100 foot and 14,000 square foot and then making RS2, 3, and 4? What was the driving factor of just getting rid of our current RS1?
Because they're not finding that profitable, they're not doing it today.
Okay, so
If
it's,
people were coming in and even if it was on a very limited basis and we were continuing to do, one subdivision plat 3-4 years and slowly growing, I wouldn't see it as a problem. I see this, we are stagnant. We're not slow. We're done. We're
You're
stopped.
essentially recognizing that we have, I think you said 6 total lots available?
We're down to maybe
Two
6
and
that don't have homes on, 2
Yeah.
that are in the original subdividers ownership yet.
So you decided to just remove that factor because it's really not applicable anymore. It's not RS1 as we have it, there's really nothing left.
It's not working.
Yeah, okay.
It's not that it's slow. It's not functioning, period.
And again, this is minimums. So RS1 at 70 is a minimum.
I mean, I think it took us 4 years to get Chambers from the start to to the roads actually, or being able to at least put homes on it. I think it took 4 years, and some of that was dealing with the multi-factors of the Chambers Development Group. There's too many, I mean, when you're dealing with 20 people to make a decision, it gets difficult.
Yeah.
But in that time period, we had nothing else. I think our last one before that was probably 2008. So it's been a lot of years. We haven't, I mean, we did hit the stagnant time, the recession of 07, 08 that really hurt those 3 or 4 subdivisions that were here, but we've done nothing other than that one Chambers that I can recall.
That's good to know.
Another,
So it sounds to me,
It's
and
just not working.
I'll just end with this. You know,
And you've got 3 experts here that can really tell you what the market is asking
Yeah.
for. It's
Thank
not
you, Steve.
just Suamico.
I'm going to leave it with this. I feel like local government, any government's job is to do as little as possible. And by having these, little as possible to control the liberty of the people, right? So I feel like what we've done is we've found the downside to that, where we have a lot size that's actually placed the freedom of individuals to make a decision based on the size of houses they want or lots they want to be too far constricted. So that's why I support this additional, or these additional changes. I think we put more control and decision-making in the hands of people and less in ours.
to add to what you were saying, Mr. Romez, about why we got rid of its current residential sewer was developers now like to come in, and they're not, of old, it used to be they would make all the lots and then kind of wait for people to come in and tell them what type of house to build. It's not really going that way anymore. They like to come in and then, dig the basements on one day, and then they come in and put the
Start
sticks in the
building.
other day. Yeah, so it
Someone
brings,
shows up, it's a quarter way done, then they have to refine it for
Yeah.
the person's interest.
yep, and it actually brings down costs to the house itself, so it makes the housing, less expensive than these custom builds all the time.
I was noticing in the edits that were sent through, the multifamily, the only thing that scares me is the big brown boxes that you mentioned in your presentation. And I noticed that there were additions made to specify, like, 50% of the exterior wall surface has to have brick, masonry, natural stone. I'm seeing that we've got minimum, if I'm understanding this correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, a minimum area of 17 or 1,750 square feet per residential unit, and that's within the multifamily. So I believe that that would deter that big brown box development that I would be afraid to have in Suamico too much. So I appreciated when I saw that. I saw that there's some notices here, and I did take some time to take a look at the other ordinances we have, like raising chickens, the ability to have chickens with duplexes. I don't think we should limit that. I believe it would be somewhat complicated, and I'm sure Steve and I would probably go rounds with how they would even pull something like that off with all of the,
That's why it's yellowed in there.
yeah, I
I
figured.
don't know that it belongs there, but that's for you guys to decide.
Yeah, and so I'm sure we'll have more discussion about that sort of thing, but I wouldn't want to go away from that either, is what I'm trying to say. If the ability to do, to raise chickens, for example, I mean, we are still Suamico, we're not Howard. And so I saw that, I appreciated that, and I just wanted to mention that for everyone to take a look at as well. And I just had a couple other questions about some of the language in here, nothing major, and we can discuss it later, but that was just all my comments.
Go ahead if you have questions.
Well, just wanted to, because of the, like, the chicken ordinance, chapter 11 of our ordinance, we would either have to modify what the proposals were, or we would need to take a look at, which I believe we should, take a look at chapter 11 of our ordinances, because it states right in there that it needs to be single-family use, and I wasn't, maybe I'm interpreting that wrong, Steve, but if that means only, then R1s would be allowed to do something like that, for example.
Well, they can still build single-family homes in R2 and R3.
Okay,
It's just a smaller lot size and a smaller actual footprint that the house is required to have.
and there's lots of rules you have to have, I mean, there's a certain number of chickens, for example, the 25 feet from the lot line, and I would assume we'd probably want to add some language to it, that if we were to allow it in like a duplex situation, what would be appropriate to make sure that if the other side of the duplex didn't want to have anything to do with the chickens business, that they would be a reasonable distance to be allowed for that. So I'm thinking, for us, we would probably want to review chapter 11 and make some additions.
And I think some of that would be a landlord issue. Because I think if
Certainly.
you're gonna allow it at a duplex, you're gonna require the landlord's sign off on it.
Of course.
And if they want it to intrude on the other renter's property, who are we to decide? Let them deal with that mess,
Right, I agree.
as far as I'm concerned, because I'm the one who's gonna get the call, and I don't need it.
No, I'm fully aware. And the other thing I just brought up too, or I noticed was, there was a exclusion of including, we had referenced the parking situation. And, yeah, on page, this would probably be page 3 of the ordinance. So I'd be looking at, it would be, we had it under number 9, under RS1. And it's proposed to be removed. And I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose sight of that.
I think it's moved up to the top.
We covered it I
think
noticed we did that with the signs.
We
so-
have the general RS that applies to all of residential sewer, has to meet the requirements of 18.09.
Okay.
What do those mean, the parking and the signs? I'm sorry, you're done.
Well, the signs, our residential code for signage, what's allowable for signage is in 18.17. So
Okay.
if somebody wants to put a sign up in residential sewer, they have to go to 18.17 to see what they're allowed.
And that's
You can't
not
have business
changed?
signs, you can't, no, nothing's, we're not touching that.
Okay,
It's just where it's
and
gonna
parking
sit.
hasn't changed?
Parking hasn't
Okay.
changed.
Yeah, they just moved it. My worry, Michelle, was that, now we've got street parking, right?
I
And-
didn't want to put it in all three categories when it's all the same for all three.
Okay.
We have our general that applies to all three sections of RS zoning. And then we have the specific rules for 1, 2, and 3. That was the reason for that.
Okay.
Nothing is being proposed to change in any of those that are referenced sections of the code.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, trustee McKeefer?
No, I'm good.
Who else?
I have just a kind of a comment on this is, Steve brought these only as examples for us to get familiar with what it could be. That doesn't mean that's what it's gonna be. I think the challenge we have here, the commission has come to us and says, can you get comfortable with that chart? Could you please put the chart up there with the different lot sizes?
This one.
All right. Because if we can't be supportive of that,
And his duplex ones are not correct up there, what's proposed in the code. So each duplex lot would be 10 foot wider than the single family.
okay. So the question is what questions do we need to answer to get comfortable? Because that's the toolbox you're looking for, right? In all the details of how much masonry, signs and chickens and parking, that's all to come. But I think the roadblock we have today is we have to get past this. And so what questions do we have here tonight that either is gonna, we need to get back to the commission, say, you gotta come back with some different understanding. For me, sitting on the board, I wanna know where this is gonna happen. That's the first thing but I can't do that. That's what the comprehensive plan is all about. But if we don't have those tools in the toolbox, I can't do the plan, because the plan is what it is today. So the question, to Steve's point, is the market is telling us that we're not attractive.
And I think your three experts out there can
Right.
tell you that.
And so that's, to me, what's in front of us tonight, is what questions do you have of them? Or can we, because we next would have to go to the public and announce that these are changes that could potentially happen.
Yeah, your next option would be to schedule it actually for a public hearing.
Right.
To actually make the changes, and we didn't want to schedule that and just throw that at the village board. We wanted this discussion and the buy-in from the board of what is going to work, because it doesn't, again, pay to waste everybody's time on a public hearing that's just is already destined to fail.
We're here tonight to find out if these numbers have the majority of the support from the board to the point where it could go to a public hearing. And if these numbers don't have the majority of the support from the board, what numbers do? But the goal tonight is to agree on whatever these numbers are and then get it out there for a public hearing. Correct?
Well, I'll start by saying I can buy into this. You know, the R1, 2, and 3. I can buy into those numbers.
R1 only for me.
All three.
I would like to see it go to the public hearing. And I think to Trustee Eckert's point, you know, we need to hear the voices that are out there on this too. So I'm okay with it is as is going to a public hearing and letting the public provide their feedback.
I'm fine with it as it is.
I can support all three.
I can support all three, but I do believe that the public's voice has to be heard through the right process. We do have one gentleman that was in the audience that raised your hand. Yeah.
If you'd like to come forward,
gotta
could you
suspend
come
the rules.
forward and provide your name and address?
My name is Thomas Wilcom, and I live on Longtail Beach Lane.
Gotta come up.
Yeah,
Can't
wait,
hear.
I'm sorry, sir, I'll have to have you come to the mic if you could. Do we need to do a motion to open this up?
You should.
Motion
you.
to open the floor for public comment.
One second. So I have a
second,
motion
Tom.
from trustee Romas to open up for public comment. Is there a
Second.
And I have a second from trustee Eckert. All in favor of opening this up for public comment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Sir, the floor is yours. Just your name and address, please.
Thank you. Thomas Wilhelm, 2452 Longtail Beach Lane. So I see all these numbers, and then I heard about parking. So has traffic flow been considered also? You know, you start putting in, you know, these multi-families, these duplexes, you're going to increase traffic flow quite substantially, and you see what we're doing with Lineville right now. You know, and I'm hearing sewer and water. Well, we're going to have to dig up the roads and make them bigger to handle the traffic flow if we're going to start adding this many, you know, residents and occupants of the area. So has that been in this scenario, has that been taken into consideration also? How our roads are? And
I think your R3s are in all likelihood an exit to a existing county road.
R3s are the designation from multifamily. So those would have to go in a very specific area with access to a county road.
So maybe Director Smith's Public Works Director, maybe he could chime in on some road impact?
Yeah, I would also agree that we don't have a lot of areas that aren't pretty adjacent to a county trunk that you wouldn't see, you know, a lot of increase on a particular road before it meets up with a county road such as Velp or M. or County J, all have had traffic studies over the last few years, all have not warranted any expansion in the near future. So, with those numbers and the statistics that we know with the roads, they can handle more traffic on the county trunk. Our roads, they're narrow and, they're busy, but, they can handle the developments that we're talking about here tonight.
And I would like to ask, I believe it was Steve Andrews, you said the elderly are leaving. Can you give me a percent? You said couple, I'm one of the elderly. I'm going to try and stay in that house till I
don't know the
physically-
percent, but I do know a few people that have.
Okay, so the percent of the population of Suamico would be a few is 5?
Well, that's of the ones I
100.
know of. I mean,
Well, I can give you some numbers based on folks who
Okay.
are our age.
Yeah, thank
When
you.
we look at the aging population in the state of Wisconsin right now, right now, 26% of our entire population in the state of Wisconsin is 60 years or older. By the time we get to 2030, that percentage of that population will be over 30%. All of those individuals, like yourself and like myself, I just turned 61 2 days ago. So I live on 3.4 acres that has to be mowed, has to be weed eaten. I want to live there forever too, but I'm not sure I can take care of 3.4 acres in another 20 years. That's the issue that we're dealing with. So we have residents like myself who, and like yourself, who are living on a piece of property, and our desire is to be there forever. And as I said, those numbers, we're seeing more of those people, right? They want to live in Suamico, but they can't necessarily take care of those big giant lots. And unfortunately, the situation we find ourselves in right now is we can't afford to sell our home. You or I can't afford to sell our home and buy another home smaller somewhere else and have any money left over because of the price of homes. So we're stuck. In a way, we're stuck, which is fine right now when you and I are healthy and able to do the work that we're able to do in our yards. But 20 years from now, it's not. So Trustee Andrews' point was this. There are individuals who want to live and continue to live in the village of Suamico. There are not housing options in the village of Suamico that allow them to downsize, to still be here, to still be part of the community that they've lived in for 50 years, and not have necessarily that giant lot to take care of. What the proposal is here is to give different lot sizes to perhaps spur different housing opportunities. R3 is the multifamily option. One of the biggest things and most important things is keeping older folks in communities where they don't have as big of yard or much to take care of, but they have community and they have homes. That R3 could potentially offer, if you want to call it multifamily, you can, but it would be multifamily older person living, right, with the services and things like that. So point being, this is an option. This is an option to allow people to downsize and stay in the community.
Yeah, three, that's a lot, that's a large lot, of course, 3 acres, 6 acres.
well, I live on a 3-acre lot too. Gets to be a little bit of work.
Most of mine's swamp anyway, so.
That's Suamico.
Well, so, I heard, the sewer and water, the sewer and water, the sewer and water. Well, if we have to redo the roads, then we have to redo the sewer and water.
This is all gonna be new developments with their new roads being put in after the sewer and water is run. Most of this is not, again, gonna go along any existing roadways. Most of those already have their homes on them. And that sewer should be able to handle what's tapped into it. Most of our sewers, if we're tapping into an existing, is oversized already because all of this has been planned to be developed. So the infrastructure is oversized if we happen to be hitting a road that's already got the sewer on it. But this is mainly to be developed. We're not going down an existing road and tearing it up and putting that sewer and water in right now. I mean, those are areas that are elsewhere that would have to have it either way, whether we stayed with this lot size or got to the smaller lots. So that's not gonna change where sewer and water expanded too. If people were building on 100-foot lots, it would still have to be tore up if they went to those areas that are already being serviced, or in the service area, I should say, so.
Steve, could you share with the group, what you shared with the commission, the plan commission, about how we pay for 100% of the sewer and what capacity we're using?
I believe Green, New Water did change how they're doing that. We used to pay based on the capacity, and apparently that has changed in the last few years.
Now we just pay by the load.
Yes.
Oh, that's good news.
Were there other questions, Mr. Wilhelm, that you had?
No, I'm
comments?
I'm kind of emotional about this because I don't want any more people moving, building by me, to be honest with you. And there's potential.
Not by you.
Yeah, Fred, there's potential for 3 houses. I kind of measured it out if it's a 80-foot lot next to us.
Well, it's already an 80-foot lot, so it's buildable, because it existed prior to the code. You have 50-foot lots down there that if they can fit a house on it, they could build on it tomorrow. If it's existing.
But, yeah, I know.
So, and most of those are already existing, so.
I'm just worried about next door to me. Thank you. for-
You bet.
The value of the land where you are, there's no way they're gonna subdivide that into little lots for the lakefront, for the bayfront. I don't see it, but
We are open for public comment right now, so is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come forward and share any comments or have any questions on this matter? Because otherwise, I'm going to close it down. Okay, very good.
Tyler Crowley, 2308 Tumbleweed Trail. I know I had spoken at Planning and Zoning, just a couple holistic items to consider, and I thought it would be good to bring up here. So just as it was noted, if we're increasing the density, we're going to be most likely bringing more school-age kids. I think it should be considered what impact it'll have on our growing school district when you look at how much Howard and Suamico potentially would be growing. When are we at capacity? When are we reaching capacity? And just keep in mind too, I believe as the administrator had noted, that we only get a certain percentage of the increase in the tax revenue if we're only getting the 21%. Keep in mind, we're paying on that $98 million referendum until 2040, along with that $5 million a year increase till 2028. So if we have more houses, increase in revenue coming in. However, if we have to have another referendum, that's going to eat up a good chunk of the taxes, which we may see a net increase. And then just the last note on the infrastructure too, stoplights or roundabouts, I'm sure that doesn't come cheap either. So as we're putting a lot of houses on the thoroughfares, how much is that going to cost the taxpayers, like we just saw with the paying for the expansion of Lineville? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, Jennifer Sundstrom with the Realtors Association of Northeast Wisconsin. I have spoken to you before, as well as the Plan Commission. Just here tonight to offer our support for the changes that you have before you for the residential sewer zoning code. We've been kind of watching this process. As you've gone, we know that between the Plan Commission and in the staff and the village board, you've put in a tremendous amount of work, a lot of research to get you to this point. It's amazing just even listening to some of you. I can see how much knowledge that you've gained going through this process, and maybe I can hire some of you out to go and do the presentations that I need to do now. I know that you, in looking at this, kind of had to look at two broader issues. There's the current housing issues that your community is facing that is not unlike every other single community out there. But also, you've Well, there's the demographics, we talked about that. You guys are talking about it, I talked about it with all of you. There was some mention too, though, I just want to clarify about how much money developers can make in being attractive, or Suamico doesn't have what people want. And I just want to remind you that it's not really anymore necessarily about those things, it's about what people can afford. Housing costs have doubled in 5 years. Look at any house out there that was built 5 years ago and double it. So what a developer can build even that the average person can afford has now become the major issue. In addition to housing overall issues and what the community needs now and in the future, you've also, I know, looked at some really important information issues relating to cost, just the math of it. Mr. Kaker did an amazing presentation just talking about what Suamico is looking at for your bonding authority and your levy limits, and what you're going to have to do or what you're going to be facing if you do not have new construction. And again, like I said, that's not about what we want or that's just math, unavoidable math of it. You also have, it's been mentioned, those major infrastructure projects coming through, and a lot of it is supposed to be paid for with new construction. If you don't have new construction, I'm not sure how that's going to get paid for. So I appreciate the fact that the community is just up against some really difficult financial issues related to your need for growth. This ordinance, I believe, does a really good job of moving the ball down the field, so to speak. Getting you, like maybe to the 50-yard line. What I'd encourage you, though, in this to do is you're not making these changes just to check a box. That the whole point of it is the recognition that you do need the growth. And so perhaps picking a target of how much growth, whether it's units or tax base, whatever it is, over the next year or two, and making sure that you check back in and you're monitoring that about whether these changes are accomplishing what you need it to accomplish. Because you are competing with other communities for that growth. It's not that there's a lack of demand out there. It's about being able to provide that demand from our builders and developers. And not to diminish what you're doing, but I'm having entirely different conversations with competing communities that are now trying to stretch and reach the 10-yard line to make themselves even more competitive for that development. And so I think that this is a huge improvement, but it's only going to be a huge improvement if it actually accomplishes the very purpose for which you're making those changes, and that's not a given in this market right now. And so just hoping that even though this is making people nervous, this is a big stretch for the community, it will help, but you may have to be open to coming back and having further conversations about what needs to be done to get that growth and to be competitive for that growth with surrounding communities. So again, I feel like I'm kind of walking on eggshells here because it's really important that you pass this ordinance. It's big progress for Suamico. But nonetheless, there are a lot of communities, like I said, that are making some major changes to how they treat development and how they try to attract it, and that you're dealing with. So with that, delicately said, congratulations on all of the work and the research. It was a fabulous presentation by your Plan Commission. Yeah, anything that we can do to help you have the information that you need and to be able to track the housing market, being able to track what surrounding communities are doing, what our developers are saying to help you reach those goals that you need to reach. We are here for you anytime. And thank you very much for everything you've done to get to this point.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? I want to get up.
I just have one question. So say a person were to want to build a single-family, 1,200 square foot basic house. Nothing special, no stone, like no marble floors, skipping the cherry wood trim, just
Yeah.
a basic starter home, 1,200 square foot on one of these, say an R2 lot. What's that is that going to cost that person?
Well, I think one of our developers, Pat Castor, is going to get up after me, and she can speak to that a lot better than I can, because the truth of the matter is it's going to be a little bit different in every community, because it all comes down to what you're going to pay for the land, right, at the end of the day, process things of that nature. But in general, I'm just going to talk about, Northeast Wisconsin. You're just basic starter home right now, 1,200, 1,300 square feet, no frills. Some of them are on 50 to 60 foot frontage lots. Builders, developers are having a hard time putting them up at 350 to 400,000.
Didn't we find the median house price in Brown County was 380,000?
Yep.
Well, when you're, a lot of the time, I'm not sure what numbers you're talking about, but many times when you're talking about housing costs, you're lumping in existing
Yeah, okay.
homes in. I mean, there was a time when building new construction was more affordable than buying existing, and that kind of has flipped over time. New construction has just gotten astronomically expensive, which is why we haven't kept up. It's why we've been underbuilding for 10 years in many ways.
I do recall the numbers. So at least through October of 2024, in Brown County, the average or the median sale price of a home, and there was over 2,000 sales, so it's a big number, about 336,000 for the Brown County area.
And
And then that same
yeah.
data in Suamico was about 460,000.
So thank you. Yes, it can vary substantially from one community to the next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Pat Castor. I'm with River City Realtors, and I am one of the developers that Steve referred to in the beginning about the land over on Lakeview, County J. We were coming in with a really neat conservation design that we worked with the DNR on, and there were 3 other developers around us that were coming with different projects, and all of those projects died. And the worst part is, well, probably the best part for us, was that the highway department was doing the road, and they needed to mitigate some wetlands, and they bought our property to do that. So, but I want to commend you for all of your work that you've done on this ordinance. This ordinance is really good, and you may not like all of it, but what you have to think about is you live here, you want your children to be able to live here, you want your grandchildren to be able to live here. You want to provide different housing preferences or styles. And as an example, I've done a subdivision in De Pere and a subdivision in Lawrence, both of which were part of TIF districts. And we did the mixed use. And we have R1 single family, we have some duplex in there, we have condos, and we have apartments. And they're in the same neighborhood, and they blend together. And I really think that when the people come in, they don't even notice the multifamily, but they appreciate it because there's people that can't afford to buy, but they can rent for a while, and now they can buy in the same subdivision. And then we have condos in there for lawn care and snow removal for the people, so they can have their grandparents live there, they can all live in the same neighborhood, they have good school district. And if you want to see the projects, they're off Lawrence Drive, and they're both still in process of being constructed, but they do offer all the different housing styles. And that's one of the things that communities have to think about a little bit, because it is so expensive, as Jennifer said. We have done some lots that we are able to do that starter home, where we're doing about 1,374 square feet with a two-stall garage, and we're not doing all the granite and the different things like that, so that the people can get into a house. And one of the things that I've noticed in the years of doing development, people take more pride in their neighborhood if, you know, everything is taken care of, everything looks nice. And when they own something, it gives them that feeling that this is theirs, they need to take care of it. That's one of the most important things that builds a community, is to have people that want to stay there. So, and we've got some apartments that we do for the elderly, and that is an important part of population, because these people have built your community, and now you're telling them, well, we don't have a place for you to go. So if you had something that would work for that generation as well, that would be, help keep your community. So thank you for letting me speak. I'm going to give Steve, I do a running total of lots available in Brown County, and a history of what's sold in certain years. And Suamico used to be one of the high-demand communities, and used to be up there. I always kind of laugh because De Pere and Howard kind of challenge each other. And I don't know, since we don't have the Press Gazette much anymore, they used to put an article in the paper that said this community had the most growth, and they'd have the lots that were in the community. And it was usually, Suamico was right up there with them. My family has done a lot of development. We did Pellegrin Estates, we did the Weed Plat, we did Woodland Ridge, we did St. Pat's Woods. So I'm familiar with Suamico very much, and Suamico has always been important to me. And seeing that in the Press Gazette, when the communities are kind of battering back and forth about who's got the best growth and that kind of stuff, Suamico hasn't been in that for a while, and it would be nice to have them be right up there. If there's any questions, I can answer your questions, but otherwise
Questions? No? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
The other thing that you should think about, which I'm sorry I forgot, when we're doing a development, we look at approximately the way the land cost is right now, we need to get at least 2 to 2.5 lots per acre. We lose about 12% of the land to roads, and then we lose another 6% to stormwater management. So almost 20% of your land that you buy in the first place is for that infrastructure. So you only have 80% of the balance left to develop, and you still have to get that density to make a project work. So if that helps, I don't know.
I do have one quick question. Did you see a decline in the availability in lots at all in Suamico after the Wisconsin DNR went through and redid the wetland maps?
I don't, there just wasn't land being developed in Suamico. There is some DNR factors that will come into play with that, but that's everywhere. When you do a development, one of the first things you have to do is wetland delineation. And then you determine what's usable.
Right. Okay.
it is unless you're in Ashwaubenon.
Yeah, you can do what you want.
Things are different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with regard to public comment? Otherwise, we'll close down to public comment. One more. You look familiar.
Look familiar? Yeah. I got back. I had breakfast at Buc-ee's. My name is George Houslade, and I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm also Suamico's rep on the Brown County Planning Commission. But my colleagues put together a great presentation. I am going to comment on one other thing. I moved here in 2002, and I lived right on Maggie Lane, right behind here. In that, and there was a little cluster of 5 of us lived across the street and next door to each other. Those 5 homes had 10 children. All of those children have since grown up, graduated high school, and gone to college. Okay? Not one of them is a Suamico resident. And the oldest one of that group, there's 2 of them, that group that just had their 40th birthday. One of them was my son. But just so, we talk about the need for this type of housing and to keep our community vital. And that's why, as a member of the Planning Commission, I really believe that what we're talking about doing here tonight is exactly the right thing to do for this community, for our long-term health.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else going once? No?
Motion to close public comment?
I have a motion to close public comment. Is there a second? I'll offer that as a second. Motion has been made to close public comment by trustee Romas and seconded by myself. Any other further comments or questions on this matter? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing public comment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? All right, so before we leave this item, do we have consensus? Do we need a motion on this, or do we have consensus to move this to public hearing?
Yeah, I would definitely make a motion. Motion may consist of something like sending it back to planning and zoning to refine any outstanding issues, e.g. chickens, and then have the planning and zoning send back a final ordinance to be published for a public hearing. I'd also suggest that our attorney reviews it before we publish it. Typically, when you do go through any large-scale zoning changes, you want your attorney to just review it, and make sure that we don't have any unintended consequences and end up in a lawsuit because our zoning code was in conflict.
Okay. So I guess we need a motion then to send this back to planning and zoning for any final refinement, and then it can go to public hearing. It doesn't necessarily have to come back to the board?
Correct.
Okay. So I would offer a motion then to take this matter, return it back to planning and zoning for any final elements to be refined, and I would encourage those who had any concerns to attend the next planning and zoning meeting to assist with that. And then for planning and zoning to come up with a refined version for public hearing following review by the village attorney. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
And I have a second from trustee Romas on that motion. Any further comments or questions from anyone? Let's do a roll call if we would.
Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Eckert.
Nay.
Trustee Neto.
Aye.
Trustee McKeefery.
Aye.
Trustee Gomez.
Aye.
Trustee Stevens.
Aye.
President Van Rossum.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone in the audience, and thank you, fellow board members, and thank you, Planning and Zoning Commission. All right, let's move on. Item 9A this evening is the administrative items. Item 9A this evening is the 2025-2026 committee and commission appointments. What you have before you are the appointments for the suggested appointments for the committees as they currently stand. I'm submitting these for your good judgment and would look for a motion for approval or suggested change or denial.
I'm not on the public and health and safety. Is this, I was moved to the planning and zoning. So is this represent current state or future state?
This should be future. Mark Stevens, Planning and Zoning Commission, you are on page 2. So I have Mark Stevens, Rob Zastro, Henry Van den Heuvel,
Right.
Sky Van Rossum, and George Houseladden on Planning and Zoning. Sorry, and Andrew Condon, right? But these are actually just reappointments. So Andy's term, Andrew Condon's term, Mr. Thompson's term are not completed yet. You
I
are
see what
on
you're
here,
saying.
though. You're on the back page.
No, it's the public
I
health and
think
safety
Nicole is
one.
on that,
that
isn't she?
I was moved off of that one, so
Oh, I see.
I wouldn't be on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I
right.
think they've got me on that one.
Put your
now.
name on that.
Maybe that's the mix-up, Sky?
I think that's the mix-up. So Mark Stevens comes off of Public Health and Safety.
Replace it with trustee McKeefery.
Correct.
Any other changes? No? So with the noted change, could I get a motion to approve or,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointments as submitted with the one revision changing Mark Stevens to Nicole McCreefy for public health and safety.
thank you. So a motion from trustee Romas to approve the commission appointments with the single change, Mark Stevens removal from Public Health and Safety, replaced by trustee Nicole McKeefery.
I'll second that.
And I have a second from trustee Mark Stevens. All right, very well. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, item 9B this evening, communication strategies for upcoming projects. Trustee Stevens.
Yeah, I just, we have tonight as evidence of a lot of change that could be in the future. And we've got a lot of development that's happening in the community and a lot of good events that happen. And when I kind of land on our website, I just don't always see a lot of information on that. And I complimented that the other day that I had saw an e-newsletter that came out that was talking about just the investment that we're making in the water tower and the well, and it's been coming quite handy. When I have people questioning, rather than having my opinion, we have one book of record that we can go to. So that's an example of proactive communication. I still think we have a great opportunity to have the voice of Suamico. And what do I mean by that is more and more people are using podcasting as an example to be communicated with. And I think we have an opportunity to take different topics that are happening in our community and post those on our website or distribute those in different ways. And I guess I would like to experiment with maybe a couple of those. And I know that we did some videoing when we were trying to recruit some of our staff here, and it went very well. So I'm proposing that we at least put maybe a committee together to talk about what that might look like, and then maybe run an experiment with different ways to communicate. And I would start by saying podcast on our websites.
So let's take it a step further. Let's move into it. Let's direct staff on this if we can to come up with a topic for a podcast. And since you're the initiator of this, we will have you on the podcast. And I'll be happy to sit on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
So let's direct this back to staff. Staff, could you outline a topic of greatest concern that you feel is of great concern? I'm going to offer it as a motion.
Wait a second.
Go ahead.
What the heck are you guys doing? So you're going to talk about a topic with your opinions and your ideas and,
We're offering a prototype for a podcast, to do a podcast, to create as an example, and then we would bring it back to the board.
like, what kind of topic? What would you
I was
like to
leaving
talk
that up to
about?
staff.
Well, but they didn't propose it, you guys did. What kind of topic are you talking?
Well, I would start with the zoning changes. I would start with more conversations about growth in development that's happening, events that are happening in our community. I would,
I don't think it's a good idea, because we've got 7 different thoughts here.
it's not
And-
about my thought, Michelle, it's about what we're doing. This isn't an opinion or a bias. This is to be telling the public of the things that are happening in our community that help us understand the benefits of being here. And so there's a lot of good things that are going on that are just not talked about. And where would I get that information? And most people navigate to websites. And our website is really good at helping us identify where some forms are, who's on different committees and things like that, but it doesn't really advertise or market the abilities and the attractiveness of this community. And so I'm offering us to start thinking of what topics we all want to talk about, or get suggestions, and we can